Hi everyone, it's Miss Gina here at the Dobbs Ferry Public Library. I'm your new children's librarian, and we're here today to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We are going to start by reading Martin's Big Words, The Life of Martin Luther King Jr. This is a picture book biography that tells the story of Martin Luther King and his legacy. Then we're going to read If You're Going to a March, which is a picture book about preparing for a march or a protest, what you can expect. Of course, protesting is just one of the many ways to show that you want something in the world to change and that you're unhappy with the way things are, but there are many ways to do that and to work towards a better future. And finally, we will read You Matter, which is a picture book that strikes at something that's at the heart of social justice, which is that every single person deserves the tools to lead a happy life that makes them feel safe and comfortable and lets them pursue what most satisfies them or makes them happy. As always, I am in my office with the door closed, and that is why I am not wearing my mask today. It is right here on my desk, and I will put it on right after I finish the story time, but I wanted you to be able to see my mouth move and to hear me and see the expressions I make on my face as I read the story. So here's our first book. It's Martin's Big Words, The Life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by Doreen Rappaport and illustrated by Brian Collier. Like all the books that I'm reading today, you can check this out through the Dobbs Ferry Public Library. We have these books on site, and it's always fun to read them again, and you can learn something new that maybe you missed the first time. So let's begin. Everywhere in Martin's hometown, he saw the signs, whites only. His mother said these signs were in all southern cities and towns in the United States. Every time Martin read the words, he felt bad, until he remembered what his mother told him. You are as good as anyone. There's Martin and his mom, and here's the sign that means that they are not allowed into the store because they have a different color skin than the owners want to see in their customers, which is not fair to Martin and his family. In church, Martin sang hymns. He read from the Bible. He listened to his father preach. These words made him feel good. When I grow up, I'm going to get big words too. Then Martin grew up. He became a minister like his father. He worked in the church, and he used the big words he had heard as a child from his parents and from the Bible. Everyone can be great. He studied the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. He learned how the Indian nation won freedom without ever firing a gun. Martin said love, while others said hate. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin is a supporter of something that's called nonviolent protesting. He said together when others said separate. He said peace when others said war. Sooner or later, all the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together. We've got two people here lighting a candle in their church. You can tell it's a church because they've got these really nice stained glass windows. Because for a lot of people, church and their faith is an important part of their life. But that's not true for everyone, but it's a source of inspiration for many. In 1955, on a cold December day in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks was coming home from work. A white man told her to get up from her seat on the bus so he could sit. She said no and was arrested. Montgomery's black citizens learned of her arrest. It made them angry. They decided not to ride the buses until they could sit anywhere they wanted. So 1955 was 66 years ago. There are still people alive who remember what this was like. They remember when they weren't allowed to go into certain stores or to sit in places on buses. One of the school children who desegregated an elementary school in Arkansas, Ruby Bridges, she is still alive today, and she's in her 60s. For 381 days, they walked to work and school and church. They walked in rain and cold and in blistering heat. Martin walked with them and talked with them and sang with them and prayed with them until the white city leaders had to agree they could sit anywhere they wanted. See, these people who were protesting the buses, they spent more than a year walking to work instead of taking the bus. And because of that, The buses lost money because they didn't have as many people paying for tickets. So it hurt them in a way they couldn't ignore. When the history books are written, someone will say there lived Black people who had the courage to stand up for their rights. In the next 10 years, Black Americans all over the South protested for equal rights. Martin walked with them and talked with them and sang with them and prayed with them. White ministers told them to stop. Mayors and governors and police chiefs and judges ordered them to stop. But they kept on marching. Wait! For years I have heard the word wait. We have waited more than 340 years for our rights. That's 340 years is roughly the length of time that America had been a country at this point. And I think something to think about with this story is, why do you guys think that the mayors and the governors and the police chiefs and the judges wanted Martin Luther King and the other protesters to stop what they were doing? Why didn't they want to support them? But instead of supporting them, what happened to Martin Luther King and his protesters were that they were jailed and beaten and murdered. They kept on marching, though. Some Black Americans wanted to fight back with their fists, but Martin convinced them not to by reminding them of the power of love. Love is the key to the problems of the world. Now, of course, that was Martin's point of view, and everybody has different opinions on how to solve a problem. And there were a lot of different ways that people worked for civil rights in this era, and that's another thing that you can learn about with your family, too. Many white Southerners hated and feared Martin's words. A few threatened to kill him and his family. His house was bombed, his brother's house was bombed, but he refused to stop. Remember, if I am stopped, this movement will not be stopped, because God is with this movement. The marches continued. More and more Americans listened to Martin's words. They shared his dreams and filled him with hope. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, little Black boys and Black girls will join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. After 10 years of protests, the lawmakers in Washington voted to end segregation. The white-only signs in the South came down. This quote is from Martin's famous I Have a Dream speech, which has also been illustrated into a nice picture book. If that's something you'd be interested in reading, it is called I Have a Dream, and it's available from the library. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. cared about all Americans. He cared about people all over the world, and people all over the world admired him. In 1964, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He won it because he taught others to fight with words, not fists. Martin went wherever people needed help. In April 1968, he went to Memphis, Tennessee. He went to help garbage collectors who were on strike. He walked with them and talked with them and sang with them and prayed with them. On his second day there, he was shot. He died. His big words are alive with us today. The end. So that was a short overview on the life of Martin Luther King Jr. I hope you learned something from it and you're interested in learning more. We do have more books on him and other important civil rights leaders, including those who maybe disagreed with him or people who have lived a little bit more recently and have similar or even different ideas. And the book I'd like to recommend that we're not going to read today, but I think is very good, is called Let the Children March. And it's about a group of children who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama, because their parents, for many reasons, weren't able to join him themselves. They felt that they were afraid of losing their jobs. They were afraid of losing, the money they could be making at their job that they need to feed their families. And the children stood up and they were like, well, we have the time, we have the ability, we aren't afraid of losing a job or not being able to support our families. We're going to help and we're going to march. So this is a very good recent picture book that I highly recommend that you can check out at the library. So our next book, as I said before, is If You're Going to a March. So this is a story about just what happens at a march or a protest, if that's something that you and your family might attend someday. It's good to know what to expect or to know what other people are doing when they decide to march because they care about their country and what they want to see from it. This doesn't apply to every single march, but it's got some good suggestions to make sure it happens safely, nobody gets hurt, and that you hopefully can try to make some real change in the world. We're going to start. So if you're going to a march, you're going to want a sign. A recycled pizza box works well. You can go get all these families having pizza. Here's their pizza. And it's just something as simple as having pizza. It's going to help inspire them to go to a march because they can use their pizza boxes. Since you're going to be outside, be sure to check the weather. We got this little girl's watching the weather woman on TV. You want layers for cold, an umbrella for a rain, or a hat and sunscreen for sunny days. Wear sturdy, comfortable shoes, and travel light, but pack snacks and water. Could be there for a long time. You don't know if you're going to be able to sit down, which can be an issue for people who can't stand for a long period of time, but that's something that maybe you can help out with other people, find a solution so that everybody can march, no matter their ability to physically stand or shout, or because their opinion is important too. If your grown-ups choose to drive, parking may be tough. You may want to walk or bike if it's not too far. Otherwise, take the train or the bus or the subway. A lot of ways to get there. You probably will not go by hot air balloon. But don't you wish you could? That'd be so cool if you could just fly in. See, so many people have come to the march. Look at that. Look at all these people with their signs. Got those families just come here. Just like you, they're showing they care about their country and want to make it better. Some people make speeches. They are excited and shouting. Still, it's possible this part will get boring. A march, though, is serious business. But it's not healthy to be serious all the time. If there's music, feel free to cut loose and dance. There's a lot of different ways to express what you're feeling. You can do a speech, you can do it through music. And then when the speeches are over and the music is done, it's time to pick up your sign and march. Let's see what these signs say. This one says, hate has no home here. This one says, do the math and science. This one says, speak up. This one says, peace begins with me. These signs could apply to a lot of different causes that these people care about. I think that maybe the do the math and science one, it might have to do with climate change, which is an important topic that people march about to bring awareness to. Double knot your shoelaces, or have a grown-up double knot them if you don't know how, so you don't trip. If you're careful, you won't get lost, but make sure you know your address and phone number. You might have to use the bathroom. If you do, give your sign to someone to hold. And of course, make sure that the people you're with know where you are at all times. Try not to go alone anywhere. If you've made a friend, ask them to wait up. Yeah, these two kids become friends now. There will be police officers at the march. Their job is to keep people safe. Some of them ride bikes. There will be reporters too. Their job is to tell the truth. If you want to answer their questions, speak in a loud, clear voice. There will be cameras everywhere. It's okay to smile. If your legs get tired, you can hitch a ride. Look at that. Got a wagon, we've got people piggybacking and riding on shoulders. While you march, you will probably chant. Good chants are, show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. The people united will never be defeated. There are plenty more. Sometimes the chants depend on why people are marching with you. If you see people who disagree, be polite. Sometimes democracy looks like disagreement too. And disagreement could come from anywhere. It could come from other people who are at the protest. There are people who are counter-protesting. It could even come from officials in government who maybe aren't interested in your cause. But, just like the story says, democracy can look like disagreement. Maybe you will sing a good old protest song like We Shall Overcome. Look at your family, your friends, and your neighbors singing. Strangers are singing too. All of you together. All of you caring. Look at all these people walking down the street because they care about something, holding their signs and doing it peacefully. Now you know for sure why you came to march today. There is a warm feeling in your heart. At last, it's time to go home. You'll wish for that hot air balloon. You must be really tired now, huh? And later, like I just said, you'll be tired but happy. Today you showed everyone you care. You did something good for your country. We've got this girl, she's asleep in her bed with her sign that says Speak Up. We've got this child is in their room with their sign is right over here. There are 2 more kids doing the same thing. Don't let your markers dry out though. And keep saving pizza boxes. You will want to be ready for next time. That's the thing about marching and protests and social justice is there is always going to be a next time. Change sometimes moves very slowly, much more slowly than we would like, and it's important to keep fighting for what you care about and making sure that the world becomes a better place. Of course, you want to do this without hurting anyone, or you want to do it peacefully, and it's important to, but that's, you can go with your sign to a march, and that's how you can get started. Of course, there's other ways to work. You can volunteer in your community to help someone with a cause. You can do some work online. You can read more books to learn about whatever you're interested in. That's always a great way to start. So our last story now is You Matter by Christian Robinson. It's also a new picture book that's all about the small stuff that's too small to see. This girl, she's looking at some plants through her microscope. Those who swim with the tide, and those who don't. The first to go, and the last. You matter. Got our first and the last. When everyone thinks you're a pest, it's a mosquito. He's just trying to live his best life, but he annoys humans sometimes. And dinosaurs. When something is just out of reach, this dinosaur, it's got some short arms. When everyone is too busy to help, you matter. What do you think is going on in this picture? We've got something falling from the sky. We've got our dinosaurs. If you fall down, if you have to start all over again, even if you are really gassy, you matter. Sometimes home is far away. This woman, she's on a spaceship, on a space station. Sometimes someone you love says goodbye. Maybe it's on the phone. Maybe they've just left your house and you're missing them. Sometimes you feel lost and alone, but you matter. It's a big world out there. There's a lot going on, but you're still very important to it. Old and young. The first to go and the last. The small stuff, too small to see. So small. You matter. The end. So this was a book by Mr. Christian Robinson. And like I've said before, I think it's really important to social justice, because social justice is about how every single person, if their arms are too short, if they're like a dinosaur, if they're old, if they're young, if they're too small to see, everything matters, and everything makes the world what it is today, and everything should be treated appropriately. So thank you for joining me today for reading these 3 books. They're all available here at the Dobbs Ferry Public Library. I hope you have a good Martin Luther King Jr. Day and that you've learned something that you can take with you into the future. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye.